Hello everyone, welcome back and Happy New Year. Since this is the first video of 2018, or should I say Happy New Accretion, energy accretion cycle, because that's what it is, to actually move through time to accrete energy. This past 3 months, I would say that the whole theme was something that I would acknowledge and recognize in absolutely everything. It wasn't anymore like I would feel before, disparate things. Although even before that, I would say I would see patterns, but and I will name this phase. But I would say that this has been so. It's like it was including absolutely everything: the drinking, the eating, drinking pattern, clearing, resetting, all sorts of things. So I would say that this was like killing off the illusions. This is the best I can describe, and I'll explain a minute what this means. And this has affected also the eating, drinking pattern as well. So I will start as per usual here. What I have been noticing in this past, not just 3 months, actually, I wanted to give it a lot more time to see, like, what is this thing, but I saw it expressing more in the past 3 months, actually until last week of last year. For some reason, usually I would always go to like healthy things, or what it's thought as healthy when I would come back from dry mode. Naturally I gravitate toward like simple, clear, clean things, like a piece of fruit or water, smoothies. That would be easy and usual for me. By the way, I do not actually judge anyone who's at a different level of energy accretion, and they have other things to deal with right now. But for me, all these things, all these upgrades have come naturally, and I have been accustomed with them even since I was like a child. I grew up in a family that at some point had, I had members of my family struggling with certain health issues, and I was like in the 80s, and then this is when I discovered, we all discovered more things on this alternative medicine path. So even then I was used to with certain things. What it meant is like healthy things, juices, and then when I became vegetarian when I was 14, then I already knew that the vegetarian was possible. There was something I aspired to. Around 2000 I already discovered the raw movement, but there was still too little to actually follow it, so to speak, but I aspired to it. And in 2005 there's this huge activation happened inside me, and all of a sudden I couldn't consume any more dairy products. It felt horrible for me. So for me, it's not about judging anyone. I'm just telling you this is something that has happened naturally inside of me. And then became vegan, roving, and now I'm bringing you back to the present moment, where I was dealing with another paradox. As I said, after a point, it's just paradoxes and paradoxes. And for me, this was one that I was like, I don't understand well, and I was explained why. Because as much as like most of my energy system already has cleared, then, or at that point, I accreted sufficient energy to basically move myself into another higher zone, so to speak. There were things that needed to be clear, and they couldn't have been accessed until that point when there was sufficient energy to do that. But more than just that, it was like, how do you do that? Because if you want to like go higher, but those things are stuck inside of you, you're stuck here. So I had to lower my energy for just energy system for a few hours, so I can be pointed toward those things that needed clearing, that needed attention, and mostly to acknowledge them. It's not like I haven't acknowledged certain things before, but this is what I mentioned a few times, it's one thing to understand things intellectually or to be introduced to an idea, and one thing is to actually live it, because it means to embodying it fully. And this is a process, again, this is a process of a Christian, and this takes time. So this was this level where I would actually finally be accessing those things and be meant then in that moment to clear those things. But this was what was needed. And I struggle with it. I feel like what's now? Is like, am I going downhill from here? What's going on? But as you have to understand that for me, like, bad things would mean like, oh, all of a sudden I would like to have chips, which I don't really go for those things. Or although even if I would have chips, I would have a healthy organic stuff. But and it's not like it was like something very often, but still for me it would be like, what's this? All of a sudden I need, I don't know, stuff like that. But this phase also kind of like, I would say, ended toward the end of last week of last year. So this was something that was kind of like frustrating for me, and it made me question my own state, so to speak. Where am I in terms of energy? What's going on here? It's like, what happened? But then certain things happened and confirmed that you're doing fine. Stop judging yourself, and stop thinking what other people will think about you when you're going to say those things. It is what it is, and you need to do those things. So that's what I did. Another thing that I noticed about the eating drinking pattern, so to speak, was, and this actually, by the way, this comes into the theme of these past 3 months, killing off the illusion. So I said that to terminate a pattern is to actually disentangle yourself from all the layers, because there's many layers of an idea, of a concept, of a habit of life and things like that. And how this feels or felt now was something like, you know how when you repeat the word too many times that it loses meaning? Well, it was kind of like that, and it's still kind of like that with a lot of things, not just eating in the drinking pattern. It's like every time after I would come back from the dry mode, I would consume something. After a moment, it would feel like, I said it's like before, it felt like it loses taste. It feels like I'm eating dirt. It just doesn't make sense. But now was another level of not making sense, and this was translated into something like, as I said, this is the best approximation that I can give you. Like repeating too many times one thing that it dissolves by itself, like it loses meaning and it dissolves. Also, I felt like after a while, it's like you would run on like empties, like you would just like run into a wall, and like you have to stop, because even if that was like for the experience, to have the experience, it feels like you were running into a wall. And this was very frustrating, and it is with a lot of things, not with just the eating drinking thing. So this is what I've noticed in this past 3 months about this. I do intend to actually make a separate video around this area concerning also hunger and things like that. I would like to put them into another video, because I would like to have a little more time to focus just on that. It was, I think, it was the end of October when I reached, I would say, the next, well, I always had previews of a lot of places, but in terms of energy and where I moved in energy, this was a time where I reached another stage, and it was just like sudden, like something that happened yes, out of nowhere, I would say. It was this morning I woke up, well, actually I woke up, but then I realized that I wasn't really here. and all these things were going on. I basically exited this reality. I was given a taste of freedom, and I was so shocked, so to speak, because my entire life I've been given this analogy that a reality or like a level of energy is kind of like being inside of in a house. You have like, this is, I don't know, first floor or whatever, it's one level, and above the ceiling there's another thing, and this is kind of like how I entered there. It's like I opened another door, window, and all of a sudden I found myself, it felt like I was on top of a house, but then when I exited, I actually found myself in another place, and not just another place, but it was a place of patterns, and I was like, I would see everything in geometrical form, that, as I said, these things are not linear. I would say I would see networks of things, but I would recognize them, but also see new things that I can't at the moment even put into words. I would see geometries, they would make sense to me, I was like shown as like, hey, this is where you're going to move, or I would say this was another level of because it was not just about my level, it was about like moving outside of it, but outside of everything. But then again, I was like, I could pick and choose where I would want to go from there. And it's like for the first time in a very, very long time, because my entire life, and even now when I'm actually filming this video, because I know I'm dealing with another clearing thing, I feel like I've been always constricted energetically. I knew that I can always express more energy and do more things, and for some reason I always felt like limited in certain ways and blocked, and I know why. Now it all makes sense. But it's like for the first time I really felt free and like to be fully me and express the entire energy quantum. And not just that, but like see what freedom is like, feels like. And when I was shown all these things, I would also be pointed to the things that I still needed to clear. And that in just, well, a few months. Well, I don't want to talk about certain dates because they concern me, and I'm there's things, as I said, I like to be safe. Not because I'm really afraid, but that's another thing that actually I was clearing all this time, because a lot of I'm not afraid, by the way, I'm not afraid of like crazy stuff that happens when I had to deal with attacks and stuff like that. It's funny, those things don't really scare me. Actually, I have a little story about that as well. But in terms of like, I know that you who are watching this, yes, you are interested, but everyone, as I said, it's at different levels of awareness and energy. And even if you think that, oh, not just, I mean, not everyone, please understand, this is not I'm trying to judge anyone, but it's like, it's just pure observation, how fast something can be misinterpreted. So I am always cautious about a lot of things. Anyway, so I was shown that at a certain point, certain things will just be gone, bye-bye, and I'll be somewhere else. And those things have happened, and other things happens. But anyway, so this was an important moment where I would feel like, oh, this is how freedom actually looks like, feels like. And as I said, this also has to do with my codes. Which I would say this is from a space of, I come from a space of conceptualizing and ideas and concepts and stuff like that. And for me, always was easy to understand abstract things, and that's why I didn't necessarily get caught into the stories, because in the stories you can have all sorts of things, beings, all sorts of blah blah, that you can get caught in here because you think that those things are the things that can trap you, and those things can trap you if you do not have enough energy to believe something else, and also to go within, because that's the most important thing. I don't really want to go into this. That means I have to talk about a lot of other things that I'm not prepared to do that. But anyways, this was an important moment, and this has meant that now I understood what it was to be free. Very, very different from what actually people understand freedom here. And as I said, this is not meant as a judgment. This is just something that I experienced, and I'm just sharing with you. In terms of this whole theme, killing off the illusion, and as I was mentioning in the first segment about eating drinking pattern, is that this has been something that has included all aspects of my reality and my mind and everything about my experience. And as I was saying, that giving you the analogy with the word, is like repeating it too many times, it loses its meaning. This is what's been happening actually with every pattern of life that I encounter, that with absolutely everything. And it's not something that I do on purpose, or I do a special meditation. That's another thing. A lot of people are they hung up into that certain things or certain experiences are supposed to be done only through meditation or through something else. And I would say that it's not accurate and not true. My own experience is one that a lot of things have come through contemplation, but this is because it's a natural process for me, and also is because, by the way, contemplation actually is kind of like the middle path. It's between meditation and focus, and focus actually is part where you like do yoga, all sorts of exercises and stuff like that. Meditation, you know what meditation is. And contemplation is something straight in the middle. And by the way, being in the middle, that's the story of my life. This is what I've always been, in between. I was never here or there, never, ever. And this actually ties into what I will like to explain now. But first I will start with a little story from my childhood. So in the 80s, my mom is a psychologist. She's retired now, but she's a psychologist. And of course, like any other parent, she would, well, I don't know if like any other parent, but she's a psychologist. So she had tested me to see how her child is and whatever. And back then, we didn't have all this test and understanding about what it means to, I mean, in terms of like personalities and what it is actually to be somebody with both brain hemisphere equally developed. And later I understood, I mean, now I know what actually this means. This is a translation of actually being able to merge together both masculine and feminine. Back then, it's just like right now, another thing that I struggle with is like to stay linear because I would like to talk in networks. It sounds weird. I would like to talk in networks. But for me, this makes sense. For you, that might sound like you're weird. I completely understand you and respect your if you think that. However, after a certain point, you will think in networks. Networks of information, because they're not linear, and it's like when you're trying to explain a concept, this is what I see, this is what I experience now. So thinking in networks, that sounds weird. Anyway, going back to the story. So my mom was testing me, and the results that she got, they were inconclusive because divergent. because as a child, I would always see both sides of things naturally. I would never really, I never understood why somebody would ask me to just see one side, or just, I don't know, that it was just one way to do things. I would always see at least two ways to do things, two sides of the story. And this was very disconcerting for my mother, who was like thinking that there's something wrong with her child. Maybe she was right. And she was kind of scared for me because I was not fitting the box that at least she studied at university, and she knew that I was supposed to be like this or like that. Anyway, when I was in high school, already a lot more information and studies, and a lot of things now were understood. That was like early 90s, about the people that can see the world equally from left hemisphere or from right hemisphere at the same time, and that was me. Naturally. So this is kind of like what contemplation is, the middle path. It's just something that for me came natural because it was part of me. Because I tried meditation, I tried other things, but and things have happened actually during meditation, but the truth, the revelation didn't happen through those things. Those things happen in a natural, unforced way. You can't force, by the way, anything. Revelation, this transformation, they all have their time, and when you're ready, things will start to work, things will start to activate, so it will have its own unfoldment, best way for you. So for me, this is the way. In terms of what has happened in this past 3 months, I said that there was this moment where I was taken outside this little reality, this constructed reality, and I started to see these patterns, these networks. And since then, it's like I have a hard time. For me, most of the time I'm not here, and I don't mean that in a, like I'm like, ooh, like that, but I mean that my mind does not work for this reality, so to speak, and that has been a challenge for me, to do life, to do work, to do anything. And if you feel like I'm becoming more weird in my videos, it was because of that. As I said, I'm starting to think in networks. That sounds weird, but that's what it is. So when I'm expressing something, I'm like inside of those things, and I'm like, okay, then I realize I'm supposed to speak here, but it's much more comfortable to be there. So I have a hard time struggling to find the form to give it here. Sorry, but this is how it is. And it has translated also into like a lack of focus, although it's not lack of focus or like a state that it's altered. But for me, being inside those things, it doesn't feel like it's altered. But from the perspective of here, it may seem like that. For me, it's just the natural state where I'm at, where I'm in. And that's what I would say that has changed dramatically. And I can't change it back, so to speak. It feels weird, and most of the time it's I'm not here. It's weird, but when I'm saying this, like I am here, I'm filming myself, talking to you, to the camera, but the mind, you have no sense. These are transmissions, what I'm doing with the videos. I'm not here. So yes, this is what's been happening, and it translates, and now I'm going to get to the thing that I actually wanting to say. So there was this point where this huge shift, I think it was around 23rd of October, something like that, or a few days before that, I'm not sure anymore. We reached another energy point, like huge, which when we reached that, I had flashback from certain things that I saw as a child, and I almost started crying of joy and happiness, because I felt like, oh, it's here, it's finally here. So it wasn't just something that I thought it was like, I don't know, fantasy of mine or a dream or whatever. It was here, and I just felt it and felt inundated with it, and all sorts of images of certain places popped in my head. I was very, very happy, and this is actually what has triggered all the other changes that have happened in this past 3 months, and also the forced, I would say, brutal clearings and being forced somehow to consume more, I would say, less healthy things for a while. So it's like, come on, clear those things now, because you can't move further if you don't get rid of those things. And this actually now goes into the clearing part, which when I would like start to clear now those blocked blocks of energy would like pop and like dissolve into be restored into energy that was available now for me to use in a correct way. And I felt like, oh, another part of my body has been recovered. I feel a little bit more of myself in here and in here and in here. And this is something that has been really major now. I mean, of course, I've done a lot of clearing all this time, but as effective, as dramatic, and it hasn't been so far. I mean, until that point. This has changed everything after that, absolutely everything. And it felt like, oh, so now it can be this easy? Wow. But we only needed to be here in energy, and this actually took a lot of work to be here in energy to be able to do those things. So getting to this point and getting into this huge clearing, then another thing has happened. Also is, I would say, related to the point of like when I was given this taste of freedom, and not thinking linear, mind not being really here, is like every time when I'm shown, as I said, that thing with the pattern, that pattern runs into a wall, and it's like repeating it too many times, it dissolves, it loses its meaning. And seeing this in everything in life, it's like most people live like this. Their consciousness is applied over the patterns, or the patterns are over them, and go through life like this. Where I was like this, started to work like this. I was this like everything has loosened up, and I was not anymore. I would not be one with the patterns of this reality. So I would have the space in between them, and I could just like, oh, so this is that, and this is the other. And so another thing that has happened is that my reality feels less and less real and pointless. It's weird what I'm saying, but that's how it feels like. It's just pointless and limited, maddening and annoying. That's how it feels for me. That's why I don't necessarily feel called to do a lot of things. I get this enthusiasm just for a short period of time, and then I go again into another clearing, upgrading thing, and then I'm like, but why do I try to put energy into this? Because it has to be left behind and move on into another level where things work in a different way, so there's no need for that anymore. So this, I would say, these have been the major things. Not being one with the pattern of life, so you think that, oh, I am my story, I am my drama, I am my whatever. No. And this is the moment where it's like that moment of energy did this to me. It's like, and I would like swim in between or sail through all these life patterns, but not really be part of anything anymore. So it has since then has been even harder for me to be here. So many times I'm asking myself, I mean, I know why I'm here, but it's not really fun, and it's becoming less fun as the energy increases and these things happen, because you hit this paradox. You think, oh, I'm going hard, it's nicer. No, it's not. If you're still connected with these things, no, it's not. It's kind of like trying to fit a size 20 into a size 2. You can't express yourself fully or correctly. So yes, that has been, I would say, the struggle. But then again, certain things have become easier. My reality feels much more magical, so to speak. With time, everything becomes less real, less tense, and yes, that makes it. They'll say this is the pleasant part, but the rest, no. I would say certain things are harder than before, which is, as I said, it's another paradox. I would like to say a few things about the weather as well. So probably you've noticed that December until now, I think also from like late November, has been really, really cold. Snow, but like it felt forced because it was forced. The energy has been felt constricting in the sense. So this is another paradox, like what you earlier said, that was the shift, yes, but at the same time, there's also counteractions, which are meant to prevent certain things. And they affect they affect our energy. They affect, well, less and less if you're dependent on a certain type of reality. But I still cannot help to notice how affecting is in general for the rest, for everyone. And oh, here I have a little dog coming while I'm filming. All sorts of little animals come when I start to do things. Anyways, sorry, it's distracting. I've noticed that it has affected also somehow my state, as I'm like putting pressure a lot on the kidneys, but also it was because of the clearing. But this was like somebody was trying to stop the energy from flowing and do its job. Well, that didn't stop me, but I just noticed it, and I realized, oh, so this is what they've been doing all this time with fear, with anxiety. I mean, we know that there's like staying in fear, it's not good for you, and it blocks basically better options. You're frozen. Everything is frozen around you and inside you. So this had actually influenced also eating and drinking patterns, like forcing people to stay in a lower zone. Because they're losing grip, because this new influx of energy, constant influx of energy, changes everything, and they're either still from the light, from whatever, from all sorts of things. So a little recommendation, regardless if you've done the process or not, whatever you are on your path, whatever you eat or not eat or whatever, you cannot go wrong with having a little bit of vitamin D3 and B12. Until you can actually produce it yourself, because as they steal things, why should you limit yourself to something that you feel you don't feel fully, not just nourished, but your system should be working fully at full power, so you can also manage the next expansion. So if you find yourself in states that actually are like, especially in anxiety and whatever, it's a very good thing to pump some vitamin D3 in you, and also B12. It will help you also when you do clearing and stuff like that. You will see how big of a difference. This thing with vitamin D3 is something that I discovered in 2000, well, I knew this from my mother, but in 2009, this is when I became really interested, and I started taking vitamin D3 like a lot, in like bigger quantities, not the standard ones, and I saw the difference. And in this time, and since the process, I haven't really taken any of these things anymore, and it was like, okay, then there's no need for it. It's like, no, there's no need, but in moments where you need to do certain shifts and certain things, you need a little bit more energy, because that's what it means to expand. You need energy, and when that thing is taken away from you, or strangled, or like until you manage, you can't stay there forever. So you should not fall into the trap of, I done the process, that means I don't need anything. Yes, but there are certain things that, why wouldn't you do that to help yourself do the next shift? So in this time, I actually took vitamin D3, B12, more. I haven't done that in a very, very long time, but it's like I decided to do this since I saw that. So in the time when I would like consume something, I would actually have that with it. But it helped me when I would do like big clearings. It has helped, but only shortly, because then I saw, at least for my phase, it wasn't really doing much. But I was just like, okay, let's cover all bases, because I'm not stupid. But if you haven't done the process, or you're in the beginning or whatever, as I said, the process, doing the brain process, it's just a part of this transformation. So what I mean is, like, whatever phase you're in energetically, where you need to clean, this will help you at least to have more peace of mind, a stable mind. So you do not actually entertain fear, anxiety. So this is kind of like a supplement in helping you to have a more stable state, which you should attain by doing a lot of clearing and a lot of patterns. So yes, that would be something helpful. Yeah. As a little continuation about vitamin D3, B12, I know that there's a mudra that actually helps you with the production of B12 and things like that. There's a lot of exercises and techniques that can do that. But what I've discovered, at least in my years of obsessing about different things, by the way, for me, yoga was never really my path. I do not stop anyone from doing those things. As I said, for me, this truth, this revelation happened in other forms. So it's not just one way. We're doing certain things. As I said, they come from a time where those things were needed in very, very specific energetic conditions. They can help, but they won't really give you the truth, what you want, or the freedom. They can help with certain things. However, what I've noticed by doing all these clearings was that now, when I would just like, let's exercise just for fun, because I know that they are not really what brought me to this level, I would feel now the power of certain things, because certain things were working inside me better than they did before. And that's why most people, even if they do these little things, they do not really progress, because you can do whatever meditation you want. Yes, you might get some results, but to actually have results is to clear yourself, clean yourself. You cannot escape that. And the rest is kind of like somebody's having like, I don't know, ginger shots or a green shot. It's like, oh, I need a little bit for a boost for my immune system, vitality. But that person not really changing their diet and lifestyle, so it will actually enforce that change and actually benefit fully from it. It's just like a little temporary, as I said. Like, I would be given certain like previews. This is like a preview what it could be, but it's not entirely that, and you have to sustain that change yourself. So what I've noticed is that a lot of people fall into this trap of doing these things and not really are prepared to actually to do the inner work, which is not easy. It's unpleasant, it's hard, it's painful, and it's time consuming. So not a lot of people are willing to do that yet, because they don't understand the benefit of it, as in like, or intellectually they might, but it's like it's hard. It's not an easy thing. Yeah. So in the end, what has brought me here was my willingness to do this. If I wouldn't have done all of this and still not, continue to do this, clearing myself until there's nothing left to stop me, I wouldn't be here. Having the revelation and these things, these changes inside me. Yeah. From December, I would say, when it was Portal there before that, a lot of, there's shift and shift and shift. It was a particular moment when it was another opening, so to speak, when I felt like I entered another stage of not just expansion. It felt like I could relax more, because now it was more, it was less fear inside of me, and it allowed for the expansion to happen. And then I was taken into this, as part of, I told you, as part of killing off the illusion, so to speak, I was taken into patterns and shown the limitations and limits. I actually wrote a post about this to see the paradox in that. And I was shown how to basically dismantle all those things. And I spent days basically being stretched. It's like my mind was, it felt like death, by the way. I have periods of time where I feel like I'm dead, or there's a lot of death. That's what I feel, a lot of death and emptiness and space, but a lot of death. And like my mind would be, by the way, this is also part of that thing where I told you, like, I'm not one with the patterns anymore. I'm just like, I'm in between. But this was a bit different. This was about building a new awareness. So it's like, I will try to give you an analogy, because from here, as I said, for me it's becoming harder and harder, because it becomes abstract and it's harder for me to put it into words to be understood here. I'll give you a little bit of an example. It's like you take a word, whatever, I know, let's say, it doesn't matter, let's say easy, and you take one letter in that word and you stretch it indefinitely. And it's kind of like this is what was happening with my mind, until you break it. You break that until it becomes something else, and you expect, like, at the end of the stretching, like, oh, come on, it's like, stop it. It's painful, first of all, and then it feels like death. Then you think, okay, I died, and what's now? And you still exist beyond that. And this is something that actually is a process that it is part of the stage where you build a new, I built a new awareness, a space for that in my inner architecture. And it's not just dissolving patterns, it's creating structure to express more of your consciousness, of source, more and more energy. And it was very, very painful. And it wasn't just one time, it was throughout the rest of the month and into the beginning of this month. And it just could be throughout the day, or I would like to go to sleep and I can't sleep. and then actually this is the perfect moment where this thing can happen, so I can lie down so these things can do whatever they want. And I spend time inside of these things, and not just patterns, but in this process of mutation, that's the most accurate word for this. And this builds actually new structures inside. So this is what has been also very important in this time. But this is also part of the killing of the illusions. Because this is how you bring new awareness. You need parts of your architecture not just to work properly, but you need new parts. You need the things that can express more of source in different ways, to also to grow energy. And I explained that in the previous video, like because this movement is exponential, and for that you need the other layers. And this is something that I felt being built in this time as well. And it has been really uncomfortable. But then again, whenever this torture would stop, I would feel even more relaxed. In general, I feel much more relaxed, even if right now I might not seem that way. But this is what I feel like. It's not just being calm. It feels how these things takes over you, and this is actually what everyone needs to do to actually upgrade and expand their awareness and energy. But then again, this comes from doing the work, clearing all the garbage, all those patterns. And when you confront all that darkness, actually this will bring more relaxation and more space inside yourself, and for other things to be built. But then again, it's as I said, it's a matter of choice where you want to take this process, and it's particular for everyone, as in like how it will unfold. It will have its own timing. Nothing can be forced. You can't really, you think I'm doing this and whatever. No, the only thing that you can do, and I was also told, is like you can clean. You can keep cleaning, and that's it. The rest is something that is beyond what you can do here. So yes, I surrender to that process and to what I need to embody. I would like to leave you with one thing before I end. I don't want to make this longer than this, at least this update, because I'll put other things in other videos. It's now more than ever, it's imperative to step outside of fear, outside of the fear frequency, because this is, as I said, this is the place where everything is frozen, ideas, solutions, everything is frozen, and it like you feel you're stuck. Everything that stresses you, everything that puts anxiety in your mind, you should do anything and everything to actually step outside those states, because when you do that, you actually finally move into expansion. And that's why the reality, I mean, if you actually are still connecting a lot and connected a lot with your reality, I mean, it's like what you see is like you really need to have input from your surroundings, and you see that there's a lot of negativity, especially if you watch a lot of TV, a lot of news, a lot of things like that. I'm not interested, very rarely. Well, of course, certain things come into my awareness as well, but they feel like a dream. It's not really something that it's part of my reality. I just hear about things. However, my focus is not there. You need to step outside of fear. Really, you need to step outside of fear, outside of survival frequency, because if you're there, if you're still there, you're trapped. So of what I feel like it's the theme, and even for me, personally, I mean, where I am right now is more like what I need to do basically this year from now on is just surrender to the process and be more relaxed, even more relaxed, because relaxing actually implies trust that everything is okay, and it will be okay. And for me, this is what I wasn't like a message, what I was been giving all this time in this past 3 months. It's like trust and relax. And that's what I am going to do from now on. And I feel like a lot of you also start to feel, even if before you were more inclined, oh, I'm going to go and get this and that and whatever, and get this done and that done, and I'm going to achieve this and that, and put a lot of pressure on yourself. And by the way, this is one of the things, is like all this incredible and radical changes that were happening and still happening inside me, put a stop. It's like I couldn't really do a lot of things that I wanted because of that. So I dealt with priorities, and I learned to not judge myself that hard, because this is what this reality wants. It's like whatever it can get into your mind, thought pattern, to make you stay into the guilt, shame, fear, all these things, it's locking you in a certain frequency, and you don't want to stay there. You want to go into expansion, you want to go into good, better things. Well, then again, good and bad, it's relative, but into expansion, that's the word. So relaxation is key. Choose anything and everything that can get you into that state. So, yep, that was it. See you next time. Ciao.